I watch a lot of true crime. Who here watches true crime documentaries? Out of those documentaries, I'm sure you can think of the ones where the husband or wife begins to get sick, but they don't know why. It starts with fatigue and headaches they can't get rid of. Then it's a migraine that keeps them home from work. Soon it's stomach pains, nausea, and then blood in the stool, which sends them to the hospital. The doctors and nurses run tests, but they can't find anything. Yet there's always one nurse who's slightly suspicious, right? They get sent home and they begin to feel better for the next couple of weeks. And then they start to get sick again. They end up back in the hospital with all the same symptoms, but this time they don't make it. Everyone around them is really sad and overly confused. And the living spouse goes on to collect a giant life insurance policy that was mysteriously and conveniently taken out a few months prior. This living spouse lives the lavish life with someone new, of course, until the toxicology reports come back. And they found a trace amount of a chemical that has been slowly poisoning this person. The spouse is arrested, convicted, and we think, well, at least justice was served. But at the end of the day, wasn't this preventable? Did they really have to poison their spouse for money? About 12 years ago, I got really sick. To set the scene, I was working a lot. I was bartending at night and working early mornings in an office. I was around a lot of people, handling a lot of cash, and getting very little sleep. Common sense told me that germs plus sleep, little sleep, equals sick. Something was different though. Along with terrible headaches, something was desperately wrong with my stomach. I was having horrible stomach pains every time I ate. I had to be close to a bathroom all day. And no matter what I ate or drank, my stomach would balloon out so big I looked 7 months pregnant. And it hurt. I limited my food intake as I didn't know what was causing it. Even the smallest amount of rice or salad made my stomach bloat out so big, and it hurt. I finally went to the doctor. My doctor ran allergy tests. He tested for celiac, for Crohn's. All were clear. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh my gosh, somebody was actually poisoning you? Let me put your minds at ease and tell you that I was. I had a very serious bacteria infection in my stomach. So my doctor sat me down and asked me about my daily diet. I told him I ate out a lot because I worked a lot. I ate at Subway since it was close to my office. I loved my turkey, bacon, and avocado subs on whole wheat bread. I ate at Arby's, Taco Bell. He stopped me right there. He looked me dead in the face and told me, "You need to stop eating all of that immediately." Why? I asked. Because none of that is real food, he said. What do you mean? I asked. I was 30 years old, and this was the first time this concept had been brought to my attention. How can food not be real? He told me I needed to stop eating the fast food, even and especially the sandwiches, and start putting real food into my body so that my digestive system could start to function properly again. He gave me an antibiotic for the bacteria infection, and he gave me food choices that would help my stomach get back on track. I will say, I lucked out with this doctor 12 years ago because I believe he was the first person to shift my paradigm around food. We are all taught about food poisoning, or we learn the hard way. Most of us, by the time we are 30, have had it at some point in our lives. Salmonella and E. coli are familiar names in our vocabulary. We are taught from a young age to avoid undercooked chicken or food that smells like it's gone bad. We are taught to not leave food out overnight. And working in the service industry, we are taught the danger zone of foods. If we learn about food poisoning with a sense of urgency, why don't we learn about how other foods could be affecting us in a poisoning way? Why is one piece of education urgent and not the other? As I began transforming my gut health over the next few years, I also began the deep dive into these questions. I started to realize that, like the spouse in the crime documentary, certain food companies are slowly poisoning us. And the sense of urgency around the education is, well, you could probably guess, money. If something makes you sick right away, and you know exactly where it came from, there's a chance you will not buy it again. But if it comes in as a slow drip, and if the additive in the food tricks the brain into wanting more of it, there is money to be made. If it comes in as a slow drip, it is more difficult to trace illness back to a specific company, and there is less chance of backfire for them. For the consumer, that's a different story. How well do most of you know fatigue? How well do most of you know headaches, indigestion, bloating, constipation, dehydration, skin rashes, and joint pain? How well do most of you know migraines, agitation, anxiety, short temper, lack of focus, and brain fog? How many of you know somebody else who suffers from these things? How many of you know children who suffer from these things? And how many of you believe that all of these things are normal? That they aren't a big deal, and that they are simply par for the course of life? Marketing is genius, and it's getting better each day. AI, anyone? Marketing and social conditioning will have you believing that all of these things are normal and par for the course of life. Companies, doctors, even other coaches will have you thinking that everything in moderation is how we should be living our lives. I was one of these people for a very long time, until I started researching what we are consuming in moderation. And I started to realize that this might be bad advice. Everybody's moderation is different. And big food, big soda, and big beer companies know this. When forced to address their ingredients, these big companies often have the same recurring statement. Don't worry so much about what you are ingesting, but about how much you are ingesting. Aligning with the belief system that we can have anything in moderation. Tell that to the spouse in the crime documentary. Don't worry about what you're ingesting, honey. You're getting it in moderation. An article in Weather 13 in Indianapolis featured an interview with Purdue associate professor whose job is food safety. When asked about certain chemicals banned in other countries and if we should be alarmed by this, her response was, quote, "I could see how this could be alarming, that, how come Europe doesn't allow something that we eat every day? And I could see the concern. But I think, too, it's all about how much of that chemical that could actually cause illness." Unquote. There is an ongoing feud between two big-name beer corporations. One saying that they don't use corn syrup in their processing, and the other one does. Each interview I read concerning the topic of using corn syrup in these beers gave a similar recurring statement. I wouldn't be too concerned about the ingredients that you are consuming, but how much of the beer you are consuming each day. As a former bartender, I can relate to this, as I used to be concerned with how much people were drinking. Now, as a health coach, I am worried about the ingredients that people are consuming over time. I worry that this everything in moderation mentality isn't serving us anymore. Because what if this everything in moderation mentality is fueling this slow drip for money? And what if this slow drip isn't as slow as it used to be? In America, about 70% of people are currently overweight, and 43% are obese. Diabetes, cancers, and heart disease are at an all-time high. If consuming corn syrup, sugar, and chemicals are okay in moderation, then why are these statistics climbing? Again, common sense would tell us that we are not consuming in moderation, or that these ingredients and chemicals we are consuming with this slow drip are causing long-term damage. Something other nations and other countries are taking into consideration. So why isn't America? The Center for Science in the Public Interest, along with many other organizations, are strongly urging the FDA to officially ban Red 3 as an additive in foods and supplements. California being the first to officially put this into motion. The FDA banned the use of Red 3 in cosmetics and topical ingredients in 1990, but it stayed approved for use in foods and medicines. If it was toxic enough to ban for cosmetics, why was it still approved for use in our digestive systems? Red dye 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, and potassium bromate are all banned in other countries due to their known negative side effects, mainly in children. Yet, due to a loophole in our system and out of convenience for American manufacturers, certain words were modified for regulatory purposes, and these chemicals are still allowed for use in our foods and medicines to this day. In no strange coincidence, these foods are now our products of convenience. They are our cereals, our sodas, our candies, and our fast and processed foods. They are the slow drip of chemicals that cause fatigue, headaches, hyperactivity, agitation, brain fog, lack of focus. Combined with the sugar that has been slowly added to everything and that we are now all officially addicted to, we are now a product of convenience. One that makes food and drug companies a lot of money. The negative effects of the slow drip of chemicals has us overweight, overtired, overstressed, overly depressed, and like the spouse in the crime documentary, overly confused. How did I get here? How did we get here? Self-talk. Does it truly come from the self? Or does it get passed around from person to person? Influence we get from our peers, our colleagues, and our families matter. Influence we get from marketing matters more. You've earned it. You deserve it. Treat yourself. How many times do you think you hear a version of this advertised to you each day? How many times do you say this to a friend who's had a bad day? How many times do you say this to yourself if you've had a bad day? Or even if you've had a great one? Treat yourself has become a popular statement over the years, especially in marketing. We have been told to treat ourselves after a hard day's work or a long, hard week, or after hardships in our lives have passed. We treat ourselves with desserts, with alcohol, and with expensive purchases. Again, aligning with the belief system that we can have all of these things in moderation. This is where marketing shines. Professional marketing agents know how our brain's reward system works. I can assure you, they have studied dopamine triggers and our brain's primal functions extensively. They know how we talk to ourselves and how we share words with others. They know there is a sense of empowerment in these words. Treat yourself. You deserve it. And you've earned it. But what happens when treat yourself becomes treating ourselves? How long do we treat ourselves with junk food, fast food, alcohol, and sugar before we are treating symptoms of IBS, weight gain, depression, and diabetes? Awareness of how marketing merges with our self-talk is becoming more and more important these days, as we have endless advertisements at our fingertips. Peer-to-peer marketing is becoming, quote, the new normal, and we are being trained to believe that we need all of the things that our friends have. Keeping up with the Joneses used to be wanting the same lawn and the same lawnmower as our neighbor. But now it's needing the same Starbucks order, anti-aging kit, video game, or Amazon wish list of our BFF and our favorite influencer. Fueled by the subconscious self-talk of you deserve it. You deserve it. I ask you to ask yourself this question right now. Deserve what? A common trolling statement those of us who speak on this topic often hear is stop demonizing food. And stop trying to scare people into eating and drinking what you want them to. I can assure you, from my heart of hearts, this is not a scare tactic. This is a mindfulness exercise. Even as a health coach, I don't want to tell people what to eat and what to drink, what to do. I simply want them to be more mindful of these things. I don't want to come here to prove anyone wrong or right. I am simply here to bring awareness to others to help them make more informed decisions when it comes to their own body and mind. I am here to invite you to take a pause before making decisions on what you eat and drink each day. I encourage you to take a moment to look at the ingredients before you buy them for you and your family. I ask you to simply slow down every now and then, to give some undivided attention to what you are consuming and why. I invite you to take pause and just remember that you have a choice in every single moment. And each choice can affect your personal health. When you become more mindful of these things, you will realize that we are being taught and really conditioned to believe that we are too busy for these decisions. We have been taught to put our trust and power into organizations, agencies, corporations, and administrations, when the real trust and power should be within ourselves and our own mindful decisions, ones that we should not be too busy for. Our country is officially the unhealthiest and in personal debt it has ever been. Treat yourself is becoming treating ourselves because of a false sense of empowerment. When do we realize that the true empowerment isn't from treating ourselves at all? It is from the actual choice to do it or not. True empowerment is saying that you no longer have to accept the symptoms that you have been taught are par for the course of life. True empowerment is from the choice to be able to choose yes or no after you have the knowledge of what is fully in your food. After you have the full knowledge of who is truly demonizing it. True empowerment is having a body healthy enough so that you instinctively know when something you ate is not right for it. To hone your intuition and true gut feelings is to know the feeling of the body in its natural state, so that you know when it's off balance. Again, 70% of Americans are overweight, with 43% being obese. Our country's health is off balance. Our country's health is not in its natural state. The symptoms that you ignore, the fatigue, the headaches, the IBS, the anxiety, these are your tickets to better health. The symptoms that you numb with chemicals and ignore with screen time are your signals to become empowered. We don't have to be sick. We don't have to accept the slow drip. And we don't have to make mindless choices. True empowerment is in informed and conscious decisions, devoid of marketing influence, peer influence, and in listening to the true self-talk of our own bodies. True empowerment is being mindful of our decisions and taking back control of our health. We don't have to be sick, because I promise you, we don't deserve it.